Welcome to the Players Ball Podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens, number one podcast in the world. We want to encourage you guys to like, subscribe, comment. We also have started up an IG for the old people that watch. That's Instagram. I know you have one. Follow us there at the Players Ball Pod. PLAYER. Follow us at the Players Ball Pod. It has the same logo as our YouTube. So subscribe here first, then follow us on IG. We got a lot to get to. It's an exciting time of year after a very long and hot summer. Football is upon us. It actually started in the amateur league. I guess that's what we should call it, right? All that money flying around. They're not college anymore.
I mean, they're going to be semi-pro soon enough.
There we go. Yeah, the semi-pro league, man. So a lot of action. Just want to tie in real quick with my former mentor of Gravy on Mac on CFB 25, Mr. Cameron Ward. Not a Georgia athlete, but shout out Cam Ward. He recovered from that early pick that I slandered him for. I said, hey, this is why I should have started freshman year. But oh man, what a performance out of Miami, man! But we won't stop there. A lot of Georgia colleges played. It's not a rivalry at all, but some inner city schools got to tussling, and that was an exciting game. I watched a little bit of that. I went back and watched the full highlights. My alma mater, Georgia State, played Georgia Tech. We got thrashed, but the first half was pretty good, right? We looked like a terrible red zone team, reminiscent of the Falcons of old, not the Falcons of new. Fingers crossed. But Georgia Tech looks solid, man. They get the ball moving and they don't stop. Did you catch any of that game?
I did get to watch some of it. I was flipping back and forth because there were a little bit higher profile matchups going on at the same time. So I definitely wanted to see, though. And, Georgia State, they had a new head coach, Del McGee, former Georgia running backs coach. Started off the game pretty strong, kept it close. Should have come away with some points on some early drives, but didn't. Georgia Tech was just a little too much for them, and in the end, it was quite a big score differential. But I think for Georgia State, being in a new year with a new head coach, still a relatively young program, to go in and fight hard against a big, I guess they're a Power 5 school. Is the ACC still Power 5? No, but to go in there and fight hard, it means a lot. I think, Georgia State has a bright future. They just got to get that program continuing in the upward trajectory. Now, Georgia Tech, they were down in the dumps pretty recently, a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, Brent Key, their current head coach, came in and was an interim, and the boosters or whoever makes their decisions after he turned around a pretty miserable season. I mean, they still didn't do all that well in the long run, but they were a lot more competitive down the stretch when Brent Key took over. They decided to offer the job to someone else. And then quickly the fan base was up in shambles, and I guess they rescinded the offer and decided to go with Brent Key, who is now the current head coach. And honestly, I think if it was anyone else, that he probably would have spit at the opportunity. But being a Georgia Tech alum, he didn't take it to heart, took the job, and he's now in year 2 as the full-time head coach, and he's got that team fighting, and he's got some good assistants. Their OC, Buster Faulkner, also a UGA tie. He was a offensive quality control assistant under Todd Monken, and was on the staff during those national championship run. So they've got a good staff he's put together over there, and that team 2-0. They actually started the season off in Dublin, getting a victory over, at the time, number 10 ranked FSU Frauds. I think I told you beforehand that was going to be the case. But good wins for the program. I think it's the first time they've started the season 2-0 since like 2008. So
That's nuts. That Brent Key story, I didn't know that either. That he was interim, had some success, and then they tried to give it to somebody else. So that was 2 years ago.
yeah, it was 2 off seasons ago. I guess this is his second full. It will be his second full season as head coach.
So
Last
week
year,
1 last year, he was head coach. He had taken the job.
yeah, it was the
Season
season
before that.
before that. Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Hey, man, I'm a diehard Dog fan, and I'm not a fan of Georgia Tech the slightest. But when they're good, it's better for the rivalry. It's better for football. So I'm excited. I think Brent Key's a heck of a coach. He's a character guy. He does remind me a lot of Kirby in the way that he approaches things. And he's tough. He played offensive lineman at Georgia Tech, so he was in the trenches. He was a battler. So got to give the man props what he's doing. And I mean, 2-0. You couldn't ask for a better start.
Can't ask for a better start than 2-0. Undefeated. With with Georgia not being in the ACC, I know you don't have a lot of respect for that conference, but do you not necessarily pull for, but do you root for the Georgia teams in the other conferences, or is it pretty much dogs and everybody else?
So I mean, I want to see KSU do well because technically they're my alma mater, not by choice, but by merger. And honestly, on Saturday, I really was pulling for Del McGee. I would love to. I do like an upset story. I mean, who doesn't like an upset? So I was kind of pulling for Georgia State, hoping that they would put the Jackets back in their place. But when it came to the game out in Ireland, I was pulling for Tech. It was technically an underdog upset story as well, even though I knew going into the season that FSU was not what they were last year. That DJ Ungulele is not very good.
DJU.
He failed pretty hard at Clemson, and what's funny is you look at the high school year that he came out. Oh man, I can't remember who was in front of him. It was CJ Stroud behind him, and who was the other one that was in front of him? I think he was ranked number 2 in the country. DJ, number 2. I think it was Bryce Young. If I remember correctly, Bryce Young was number 1. DJ was number 2, and CJ was a 4-star. And you see what both those two other guys did. You see what DJ is trying to do, which is try to play the position, but getting beat pretty miserably.
I saw a meme that said DJU replacing, what was his name? Travis. I want to say Barker, but I know that's not it. The former FSU quarterback.
Travis. Oh man, I'll remember in a second.
Insert first or second name. It's like DJU replacing Travis is almost as bad as DJU replacing Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
He took over those jobs behind people who were really good. Jordan Travis.
Travis. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, so FSU dropped another one to BC. Go Matty, the Fighting Matty Ices. Actually, we have a couple Falcons BC alum, right? You got Matt Ryan, and then I believe Chris Lindstrom, current Falcon, was a BC Eagle. I think that's what they are, the Boston College Eagles. Under a first year head coach in Brian, what's his name? He was a former former NFL
Belichick's tree.
Yeah,
Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien, thank you. Yeah, so Bill O'Brien's first year heading up that program, they went down to Tallahassee and got the dub. So good for them. Not so great if you're an FSU fan.
Yeah, it's not all that noise they were making. We should be in. We should be in. And they got thumped by Georgia. Now they're getting thumped by Georgia Tech and BC. I think it was a little closer in that one, but it wasn't. It wasn't a good showing.
BC handled them pretty easily. The score was a lot closer than. Well, I guess Georgia Tech won it with a field goal in regulation. So both, I mean, BC beat them by a wider margin than Georgia Tech did. But I felt both games were pretty much dominated by the opposition. Like Georgia Tech dominated the line of scrimmage, BC dominated the line of scrimmage. I never really felt worried in either of those games that they weren't going to get it done. So it's quite funny. I was talking to a coworker, and not to talk too much about FSU because I do want to talk about my dogs, but I was before week one, I was talking to a coworker and we were talking about that game, and I said, I think Mike Norvell lost that locker room when everything went down at the end of the season last year, with everyone opting out, with Mike Norvell actually publicly saying what he said about feeling like they got slighted and they should have been in the college football. And whether or not that's, I believe to some degree they were justified in how they felt. They didn't lose, right? And to keep them out of the playoff because Jordan Travis got injured is kind of a really crappy reason to keep them out. But to be upset about it is understandable. To publicly go on record with your feelings on that, basically crying, whining about, pouting about it, not showing up to the game, and then getting absolutely blasted by UGA 60-something to 7. I think at that moment in time, he lost that football team, right? And I think it's quite obvious with the performance thus far this year, right? It's okay to feel those ways, but as a head coach, as a leader, you can't echo that publicly. You can't let your guys buy into that. Like, you have to find a way to pick them up in that moment and use that frustration and energy to move forward and get better, right? Georgia had several players that were headed to the pros. Ladd McConkey was injured, and yet he still played that game, right? Instead of whining and crying about not getting in when they were undefeated until the SEC title game, right? They lost one game. There's teams ahead of them that lost games to worse opponents that got in, right? They could have had that same mentality, but instead they were like, no, we want to go out and we want to prove it on the field. We're not going to pout about it, right? Like, we're going to take that anger and we're going to put it out on the field. And that's why I think Georgia's been as successful as they've been, is because that mentality, right? They're professionals on the field in their way that they approach the game. And
part of me agrees with you in the aspect of them coming out public. The other part that doesn't is, like, I want if I feel like I've been slighted, I would want somebody of authority to say something publicly. Now, he, in the locker room, he clearly didn't do what he should have done because they went out and got their heads stomped. But me as a player, I feel less empowered. I'm gonna say something if I'm feeling slighted, but hearing my coach just makes me feel like, all right, yeah, he agrees, he has my back. I don't necessarily that would rally me, right? If it's delivered properly, like, hey, we got slighted. Let's go out here and whoop their head. I do want to hear him say it though, because it's one thing to know it internally, and it's another thing to know it publicly. Like, we are undefeated, and they didn't give it to us.
I think I get where you're coming from. You as a player, as a employer or what employee, whatever you want, you rally behind knowing that the person at the top or your who you report to, so to speak, has your back, right? And is going to fight for
Yeah.
you. And I get that. Like, I could see that. I just think that there are ways to approach it.
Mhm.
And you can do that, publicly in the media, which to me doesn't really accomplish anything. You could do it behind closed doors, and you can still be vocal with your team, and let them know without doing it in the way that Mike Norvell did it.
Now I don't know exactly how he said it, so you could be completely right. But in my mind, I'm like, no, man, that needs to be aired out. If you don't, the squeaky gets the what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? If you don't air out that laundry, then they're gonna think it's okay to do again. It doesn't necessarily change anything, but at least you voiced your opinion to a bigger audience that look, this is some bull stuff, and we should be in the playoffs. Now, because their performance thereafter was so
Yeah.
poor, that decision seemed it was proven correct, proven accurate.
Yeah. So I think it's,
Maybe. I mean, Georgia was one of the best teams in the nation, so it's not like they ran into another non-playoff team that was slumping. They ran into a team that happened to lose the SEC championship and were relegated to being outside looking in.
I think it's interesting because, at least in the example that we have in front of us, right, you have a team in FSU who were slighted, and they came out and publicly talked about being slighted and their distaste and or displeasure with the outcome. And then they failed to show up in the game they had on the schedule. And then you
Mm-hmm.
had another team who did also had every right to feel slighted, who didn't come out publicly and kept it all behind closed doors, and they all came out and came ready to play and busted their heads. So it's just an interesting, um, you know,
Were
counter.
there more people pushing for Georgia or rallying behind Georgia to be in the playoffs or FSU?
I think that there, on a media standpoint, more people believe that Georgia deserved to be in the playoff. But
I think that makes it easier, right?
I don't think it makes it
You
any
don't have
easier
to.
if you're a player.
Well, not to play the game. I'm saying if you feel like you've been slighted, but then the media also is expressing that same thing, there is less reason to come out publicly. Whereas with FSU, basically, I feel like everyone was saying they didn't belong anyway. You lost your quarterback. There's no chance that you win. We're going to take you out. And that was kind of a consensus, right? So at that point, I do have to stand up as a coach and say, no, that's not right. We should be in there. Now, to lose the way you did, then to come into the season, drop the ball to Georgia Tech, drop the ball to BC, and then go on an apology tour. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That's a bad look, right? So I think what you're saying ended up playing out exactly as you thought it would. I, take all the present out and just look at that moment. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying. I don't think it was as consensus as far as FSU being out in terms of
Yeah.
the media's opinion, but I think people they found it easier to justify with the injury and the weak schedule, the weak schedule that FSU played last year. Just comparing them to Georgia, but also everyone, said Georgia had their opportunity and they lost it. So, and that may be the case, but we don't live in a vacuum, and that's a very vacuum approach in analyzing what transpired, right?
The 4 team really did go out with a bang because we won't have to deal with that this year, right?
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing now with this new season. We expand to 12-team playoffs, so it will be really interesting to see how everything shakes out. You know, the Dogs, let's get to them. They played Clemson in the Mercedes-Benz, and it was a close game in the first half. I think at halftime, no one had scored an offensive touchdown, and that was dating back to the previous matchup where the only score was a interception, pick six. So I think everyone kind of expected this to be a very similar defensive battle game, and for the first half, it pretty much was. But coming into the second half, Georgia came out and put their foot on the gas and ended up coming away with the big win. Clemson is another one of those teams I kind of put with FSU. They're supremely talented, but I don't think they have the juice to go very far. They, I think, lost 3 or 4 games last year. They didn't do anything transfer portal wise to upgrade their team. They did bring in a decent recruiting class, but freshmen are freshmen. You're playing a sport of grown men versus, with boys sometimes. I mean, there are very few high school seniors that come in ready to play day one. There are some exceptions, but the vast majority need a year or two to continue to mature, develop their body, get into an eating and lifting program that's intense like they have at these universities, and learn the playbook, the scheme, and everything to go out and perform. And so you saw the talent gap on Saturday between Georgia and Clemson. So, Go Dogs.
Did you see Roddy White's take? I'm curious what you thought of that.
Oh, I did not see it.
He said that Clemson had one brother, one brother on the offensive side of the ball, coming from a position where they're like wide receiver U, produce some of the best wide receivers in the league. He's like, where all the black people at? Roddy is not he's not a man to mince words.
No. Honestly, I don't know Clemson's roster very well, so it's not something that I really even noticed.
Right.
But I'll take Roddy's word for it.
MB says where the brothers at.
I will say they do have one on the defensive side of the ball that is a relative to a former Clemson Tiger that plays for our Atlanta Falcons, a quite polarizing player when it comes to yours and I's take. Defensive player as well, they play the same position, and that would be one AJ Terrell. His younger brother plays for Clemson now.
Okay.
He had a pretty solid game. I mean, for a team that lost by double digits.
31.
But yeah, so AJ Terrell's younger brother plays for Clemson. He seems to be a stud. I did see a video, and it was Lorenzo Carter playing against AJ Terrell in college football 25, and AJ absolutely smacked Lorenzo. I think it was the inverse score of the real game.
I was gonna say they were playing with their alma maters.
Yeah, and
oh man, that's terrible. That's nasty work.
Yeah, AJ's brother got player of the game. He had multiple interceptions and 2 touchdowns.
Sheesh.
Yeah, so
as a DB, he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
took it to the crib. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that was fun. Those boys get going this weekend. How you feeling? It's a home game. You'll be there.
I will. Man, I'm the I can feel the winds of change creeping in, right? I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I'm just seeing so many takes. I don't know. I don't like to be, the media darling because they're usually wrong. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. So to have all these syndications talking about, oh well, how good can the Falcons really be this year after their moves? I think it's justified the conversation and those stances, but I just don't like hearing it from people outside of our fanhood, of our organization, because generally it just feels like bad luck. Like, shut up, Stephen A. Not really, but it's I don't like it. I don't like that everyone's on board now. Um, Feels like bad luck.
Yeah. So,
But I do think we're still going to do well. I'm predicting a week 1 win.
so today, Raheem Morris had a press conference, and some news came out that one of our players, offensive players, is dealing with a little bit of an injury and has been for a couple weeks. And that would be Kyle Pitts' hamstring that he's been nursing. And so I wanted your reaction because I spoke to you before we got on, and you had no idea what the
I
news
had no idea.
was. I know Kyle Pitts is one of yours that you're just waiting to see it from him, right? You don't have a lot of faith. You don't have a lot of a trust in what he's going to bring to the table. So with this news, I just want to get your feelings. How does it change your outlook for Sunday? And what you thinking?
I'm extremely disappointed, right? Because I was starting to have this idea that Kyle Pitts was going to be, he was going to turn it around. Whew, okay, I thought I had drafted him, and I was like, no way.
I definitely have
In my
him on
fantasy draft.
at
Do
least
you
one
really?
team.
I mean, it's encouraging for, I think like the Drake Londons and the Darnell Moonies because it's less balls that are going to go his way. I hope that he can heal up because of what I did see in the off season, how quick he looked, how strong he looked. I was encouraged, and I really did. I'm always pulling for him, right? Even if I have less than favorable desires for his future. Um, he's with us. To hear he's injured, man, that sucks. So
So
so are they saying he's gonna play or no?
it sounds like he's going to play. I will say Raheem said it happened a couple weeks ago in practice, so it's not like a new thing. It's just now that we're game week, some of those injuries have to be reported, right? Um,
Mm.
so I believe he's probable, and they're just going to see how he's feeling. But I mean, it's a little disheartening because it's something that he's struggled with. I don't feel like he's been healthy for a very long time, and it seemed like he was getting there. And if he's healthy, we know the athleticism, we know what he's capable of.
You do. I don't.
Well, from what he
Or at least
showed,
I've forgotten,
yeah.
right? I didn't watch him at Florida. I know he had a decent year with Matty Ice his rookie year, but that was so long ago, man. I don't see it. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I think it's hopefully fingers crossed that it's not going to be something nagging and that it's just
mm,
a minor hamstring and he'll be ready to go on Sunday. Now, I did hear an interesting conversation on our favorite or second favorite affiliate, and that was 92.9, and it was Dukes and Bell, and they were talking about the preseason thing, and we talked about it a little bit, I believe, last week or the week before, and players sitting. And the statement was made, in order to get ready for football, you got to play football, right? Like
mhm.
sometimes to get your body game ready, you have to get tackled and taken to the ground at speed, right? And the question, and we can't rub our crystal ball and say whether or not, you know, he would or wouldn't be injured today if he had played preseason, but I think it does say something about the fact that these guys are being babied and yet they're still managing to hurt themselves. So I just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, why hold him out if he's gonna get injured anyway? I know I told you what I heard Dave Archer say on the show a couple weeks ago. If he doesn't play 100%, he can't get injured right in the preseason game, and obviously that's true. But I agree with you, right? Take a hit, take a lick before it's go time, so you at least know what it feels like. Um, you don't want that first hit to be in, and I know that they have some contact in practice, but your teammates generally aren't trying to lay you out, whereas the other team is. Um, I think he should have played. I think Kurt should have played. I think Michael Penix definitely should have played. Um, nah, man, that's discouraging news. I hope he makes a full recovery quickly. I hope it's something that's comes and goes
Yeah.
because I really do want to see him do well. Right? I mean, him doing well bodes well for our team. Number one, but him doing well, I want to root for people more than I want to hate on, and he's giving me more reasons to hate on him.
So Sunday predictions, you still feeling confident with the pick?
Yeah, I'm feeling like the Falcons should take it. I think Arthur Smith will come out there with some nifty difties, but I think our offense should win the day.
What
They have a solid defense.
what are your keys to the game? So what has to happen for us to win on Sunday?
I would say Bijan needs 18 touches is what I want to see. Um, we need Drake London now, right? I would change it, but I want Drake London to have 5 catches. Let's call it 8 to 10 targets, and then we got to put Russell on his back. Let's 4 times. If we can do that, I don't think we lose.
I'm
What
I'm
do you think? What are your keys to the game?
I'm pretty close with you. I think number one, defense has to put pressure on whoever's playing quarterback, right? Uh,
Hmm.
we got to at least make them uncomfortable, right? Like get some hits on them. You don't necessarily have to record sacks, although I'll take every sack we can get. This team
Yeah,
hasn't been a good sack team in over a decade, so we'll take all of them. But if you can at least force the opposing QB Russell Wilson, if Justin Fields is out there, if you can force him to be uncomfortable, get a couple hits on him legally, take every single one. Defense has to come out to play, and then offensively, we got to be multi-dimensional, right? Like we got to be able to push the ball downfield. I want to see some deep throws. None of these, check down, check down, check down that we saw, from the Desmond Ritter era. And we got to be able to run the football. I think between Bijan running and catching the ball out of the backfield, and then Tyler Algier being the Thunder. We gotta take care of business in the red zone. That's something we struggle with in the past. We got to get 7. I don't want to see
sevens
Young
over
Wei
threes.
Koo. Yeah, I think he had the most field goals within 20 yards of any team last year. So we got to turn those 3s into 7s for sure.
Another thing is I specifically on the sacks. I want Judge Judon to start earning that money week one, right? Because I want him to put us in a position where we're gonna have to figure some things out. Right now, he's playing on the final year of his contract. If he can start to earn that money now, man, I appreciate him. He says that we don't know him. I don't know you. Yeah, go out there, show me who you are. I heard you a beast. Let's see it. I really want to see him get off to a hot start.
Who do you have as your week 1 MVP? Who do you think it's going to be?
Captain Kirk. Yeah, I'm going with Kirk. I think we rise and fall how he goes. So if he's the MVP, we won the game.
My one of my fantasy football teams, we are the Bijan Mustards. So
I love it.
I'm gonna go with Bijan week 1, getting the Falcons MVP game ball.
I have Bijan on a team. I just that's who I was thinking I had instead of Cowboys. I do have Bijan. So yeah, I might have to steal your name.
I do not have Bijan on any of my teams,
Copyright
unfortunately.
thieves. Oh, okay, okay.
I tried, but no cigar. There are a couple, I guess, Falcon adjacent moves. One of them's, Falcon. One of them's Falcon adjacents. These moves, I think, kind of flew under the radar. But one of them, and I'll get your opinion on this, or on both, but we'll start with this one. What do you think about Desmond Ridder getting released from the Arizona Cardinals?
Did you see that he was re-signed to the practice squad?
I did not, but I assume so.
Yeah.
But still, like, from a starter
Um,
to a practice squad, it's a pretty low fall. And the fact
and
is,
it's
we traded. What did we get? A 3rd round pick for him.
4th, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
Terry.
it's a telling sign of Arthur Smith's ineptitude at talent evaluation. You got the most important position on the football field, and he dropped the ball twice. Right? I mean, Arizona needed what? 3 weeks to be like, nah, you ain't it, big dog. I know
Yeah.
they had a lot of Falcons film, but I thought he had some good games as a Falcon. But if they were able to tell that quickly that he wasn't the man, Arthur Smith, you know, he ain't the man either.
I'll tell you what. Terry Fontenot must be a master negotiator for the wizardry he has been displaying of late, managing to flip Desmond Ridder into an actual usable pick, right?
Yeah.
Being able to get Judon for picks, making it work so that we could get Justin Simmons. And then the one that I thought was pretty shocking, well, two cases. I thought it was shocking he made the roster. And then when he got traded off, that would be Tyler Heineke. That was another wizardry move. And I think that one kind of went under the rug or under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I think Taylor. I was listening to the radio earlier. It was the Abe Gordon show. Just popped out to get some milk real quick. He was saying that Taylor Heineke might be considered the backup. Justin Herbert doesn't play full seasons very often, so he may actually get some spin out there. And he had some good years in Washington, right? He didn't necessarily do what we wanted him to do, but we knew he wasn't going to be our franchise quarterback of the future. He's a serviceable journeyman, right? He's a good journeyman. But to echo what you were saying about Terry Fontenot, that man has been in his bag this offseason. He's been getting down. And I want to use that to transition into a question of another general manager who is often in his bag, but of late hasn't been doing a whole lot. How you feeling about AA right now?
I still am pretty high on AA. The moves that he's made now, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I do know that there are some financial restrictions that he's under. This offseason is going to be a really interesting one for many reasons, and some of it have to do with the moves that he has made this year, trying to piece together a battered roster, right? Bringing in Jorge Soler, I forget who else, but when you look at the financial implications of it, we are over, I think, the second luxury tax threshold, which means a bigger payment that Liberty Media has to fork up. So I know they didn't want to reach in there. I know they're not, afraid to spend money, but I do know there's limitations on that. They don't have a blank checkbook the way some franchises like the Dodgers and the Yankees have had over the years. They're a lot more fiscally responsible. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they have to do this offseason to make it work, and where they're going to cut, and where they'll be able to add. But you look at some of the moves that he's made. Two very, very, very impactful moves this offseason. One, you were kind of hoping would come to this. The other, I think, is completely unexpected if you're a fan of the game. The first one, Chris Sale, right?
Woo.
Leads the league in every category. He's the first Triple Crown candidate that the Braves have had in a very long time. I think since like 1998. He is hands down the leading candidate for the NL Cy Young. And if he doesn't win it, burn all their houses down, because the voters are full of crap.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah,
burn them down.
Yeah, take them down. But no, that move, everyone had like this. I think when we saw the move go down, everyone had this hope, because Chris Sale has been a fantastic pro. He has just really struggled injury-wise, and some felt like it was a pretty big gamble, and you gave up Vaughn Grissom. Well, the joke's on us, right? Chris Sale is worth every single penny, and Vaughn Grissom has been a whole lot of nothing for the Red Sox. And then the other big move was Ronaldo Lopez, bringing in Ronaldo. And when he was brought in, we didn't really know what his role was going to be, right? He had some starting potential, but he had been in a bullpen guy the last several years. So we weren't sure going into the season if he was going to be a bullpen guy or if he was going to be a starter. Well, because of the needs with a few injuries, this and that, the spring training performances, he got, put into a starting role. And those two guys have held it down for our rotation this entire season. They are by far our number one and number two aces this year. Now, Max Fried has the veteran status. He's been in with the club for the longest. He's been an outstanding pitcher for many years. But this year, between injuries and just some ups and downs, like, I have to put him in terms of performance at number 3, even though from a talent standpoint, he could easily be in the same conversation as Chris Sale.
I agree with that. He's definitely had an up and down year. For what it's worth, it doesn't look like he'll be back next year, probably because of the money things that you were talking about. But a friend of ours, a good friend of ours, he's not necessarily down on AA, but there is a transaction that he's been keeping up with more than I have. I knew where he was and I knew how well he was doing, but this has soured him. And I'll phrase this by asking you, who is the best catcher in the league right now?
I knew exactly where you were going.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one, right? Because I was a little bit, on the fence when this move went down. And he was a young guy. He showed a lot of potential in that World Series run. And I think, we went the direction of Sean Murphy because of his defensive prowess. Well, it turns out William Contreras. I get William and Wilson mixed up all the time. But William Contreras has definitely upped his game in terms of his defensive ability, and his bat has been a lot more consistent. Now, when the trade first went down, that first few months, Sean Murphy looked every bit of advertised, right? But it's been an up and down road for him since. And I it's hard because you've got the youth of William Contreras that you would love to have. Like, if I could grade that trade, right? I'd probably give it a C plus. And I say
Mm.
that because I don't feel like you dropped off a whole lot, but you didn't get better, which is what you're hoping to do when you make a move like that, right?
And you traded the age too. I think a C plus is accurate. So that was Dion. That was his take. He's like, man, I need to come on there. I need to talk about the Braves. Y'all talk about AA. I'm like, yeah, he's a good. He's like, no, man, he makes mistakes too. I was like, all
Everyone's
right,
going to
yeah,
make a mistake. I mean, heck, if you're in the pros and you can hit a baseball, what is it? 2 out of every 10 at bats, you're great. If you can do it 3 times out of every 10 at bats, you're a Hall of Famer, right? Like,
yeah,
it,
crazy.
people make mistakes. I think that AA has certainly missed on moves. Like, I think the Aaron Bummer move was bad a couple years ago. There was a guy they brought in and it just didn't pan out. But I think he hits on probably 60 to 70% of his moves, which I think
More than
is
good.
still, when it comes to the difficulty of piecing together a roster, managing the financials, and predicting how people are going to actually perform or, stay healthy. 60, 70% is a fantastic record.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. So, I mean, the season is coming to a close. We're under 30 games left to play. We are currently half a game up on the Mets. It feels like the division's kind of out of reach after going 3-1 versus the Phillies over the weekend, over the long weekend. Um, how you feeling about playoffs?
I think it sucked to go to Philly first off and win 1 out of the 4 because, like you said,
Mhm.
we had an opportunity to really take a shot at the division and we fumbled it. Game 1, we were up, I think 3-0, and
Yeah,
um, managed to blow it. Game 2, we took care of business. I don't think any of those games we were really out of it, right? Uh,
right.
Even the game we got shut out, game 4, I think it was. Aaron Wheeler was on the mound, which is their, bona fide ace. And
Was it Aaron Nola or Zach Wheeler? Was it Aaron
Zach
Nola?
Wheeler. It was Zach
Zach Wheeler?
Wheeler who pitched the shutout game, and he pitched a great game. And he's their bona fide ace, so you expect it from him. So I feel like we're in a pretty decent place. I would have liked to go out and take at least 2 of those and split
Yeah,
the
split it.
series, but we didn't, and we come back home. We won game 1 against the Rockies. I think we're up tonight, game 2, which I want to get your take on something dealing with tonight's game. Overall, if you just look at August and even some of July, this team has played very well considering the circumstances. And our starting pitching has been fantastic. Now, our bullpen has been up and down. Your favorite player, Rysel, was reliever of the month. He had a fantastic month of August. He's been on fire of late.
Yeah,
So there are some holes. Offense is still a struggle. I did see last night that Ozzy is doing drills, so he's getting closer. He's out of a cast, so he's getting closer to being able to go. I think we'll have to make it into the playoffs to be able to see him, or maybe we get lucky and see him in the last series or 2. But him getting healthy is important. I do think this team, because of the pitching, like, we have the ability to make a run. Like, we have the talent. I like what I've seen in spurts from Whit Merrifield, from Kelnick, from Soler, from Laureano. getting Michael Harris back was huge. He's made some fantastic defensive plays. He's brought a little bit of power. It looks like, Matt Olson's getting a little bit of his bat. Um, the Big Bear's been doing, the same thing all year. So there are nights where you just want to throw your head against the wall, especially when you're getting shut out and it ends up being like a 2-0 or 3-0 game. And you're like, with the offensive production potential that we have, like, we should be able to win those games. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I mean, the Mets are on our heels. They are on a roll. So, I mean, if this...
They're our second to last series. We had 3-game home series against the Mets before we close out the season. We also have a 4-game series against the Dodgers. That's also at home. So I think that, that's a better place to play. But, we're going to have to win some of those games for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be down to the wire. No doubt.
Got some dope promos coming up too, man. Today was Lucas Bible night. I was trying to get to it, man.
So I wanted to ask you if you saw the opening pitch.
I did not. How did you do?
It was great. What was the song? I forget what the song was, but in the music video, he's got these giant arms, like these. Was it Stand Up? Or get back.
They're like a midget that's hanging from my necklace. He's working around with Vern Troyer on his chain.
No, well, I don't remember that part of the video, but it's the one where he has like the giant arms, like they're cartoonish.
Yeah, like buff. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came out with those prosthetics on, and through the opening pitch, like that.
Just get back.
That's it. Yeah. Fantastic. I love him. So great.
Oh yeah, I gotta go and watch that. That's crazy. And he threw like with the big shoes too.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there was nothing special about the actual throw, but the fact that he would get out there and put on a show, like, you gotta love it, right?
He almost threw a strike, man. We gotta link that. We gotta link that in the, look at this. Luda, you got a giant watch on.
Yeah,
oh, that's fire, man.
Chris Leva out there.
Well done. The song was Get Back. They had that. Tomorrow they got a Harry Potter themed ticket night. They got a jersey, Atlanta jersey with Hogwarts on the back. That seems pretty dope. They got a Los Bravos hat with the Met series. City Connect jersey giveaway with the Met series. Roberto Clemente Day. I don't know what they're doing there. Kids run the bases. Oh no, I promised the Bowman boys I was gonna take them to a game. We were gonna try to go today, but they have been under the weather, so we couldn't make that happen. We were deciding yesterday, but when that didn't happen, I was like, all right, well, we're definitely gonna pod because we hadn't podded in a while. So yeah, man, still gotta get to at least one game. We may not be guaranteed postseason, so
yeah. When you figure it out, just holler at me and I'll see if I can get it in. I haven't been to a game all year, so it'll be the first time in a long time that I haven't made a game.
Yeah. I think we gotta make that happen. Yeah, man. Well, I know we're. How are we looking on time, man? It feels like we're
getting close. I think we got like five minutes. There was something I can't remember. We transitioned to the Braves, and we were talking about Terry Fontenot. There was something else I was going to ask you about the Falcons, but it's all good. If I remember it, I'll holler. There was another local team that had some big news come out today on the general management front. Yeah. And that was Atlanta United finally fired Carlos Bocanegra. We're back, baby.
Yeah, and we're back.
Don't even have to hire anybody. We upgraded. No. No, man, it's been a long time coming. The poor roster management decision after roster management decision has absolutely bit this team. I heard a very interesting conversation. It was John Fricky talking about just the city and how the fan base is and how fired up for Atlanta United everyone was. You know, you see the flags around town. They were the talk of the town, the darling. They came in onto the scene and just wowed everybody. And that fire has definitely faded. And he was talking about how important it is because of the nature of how Atlanta fans tend to be to rekindle that flame, or else you might lose it for good. And I think that's a little bit of an over exaggeration, but I do think there's a lot of merit in what he's saying. And if you're Arthur Blank, you do not want to lose that momentum that you had built. I mean, you've already lost that momentum, right? But you got to find a way to stop the downward trend and get back on the climb.
Keep that fan love, right? Yeah, Fricky in that regard is right. Like, if you're not winning, it's only going to be, maybe two or three seasons of consecutive losing before the fan base is like, all right, well, we're done with this. Moving on. What else can we do with our time and our money? Yeah, so may he have more success in his next job, but I'm glad he's gone from here.
Yeah,
I think that fire has been is not fully extinguished, right? Maybe there's an ember there, right? Atlanta is the resurgence. We got the Phoenix on one of the Atlanta United jerseys, so I'm sure that they can make a comeback as far as fans are concerned. But you got to have a product on the field that people like, and without getting that, that's your job. If you're not getting that job done, then we need to find someone else to do the job.
Yeah, and they gave him ample opportunities. I mean, I think they gave the man 4 head coaches and still couldn't right the ship. So, time for you to get out of here.
Get out of here. Oh, man. Speedy recovery to that Kyle Pitts fella, man. I am really discouraged. That one has not left me, bro. United, we gonna keep it. The city's gonna keep it going. I mean, it'd be such a fortuitous situation to have the team be good while the World Cup is on its way here. Um, you know, you have so many soccer fans that will be coming to the city. Maybe they'll stay. I mean, I don't want all of them to stay. We are full in the city of Atlanta, right? But can definitely garner some fans if you're performing well. Maybe people show up early or stay late to check out United because it's during the season. So
yeah, I mean the city's popping, right? And it's better, even better when our fan base is, or our teams are succeeding, right? You just this last weekend you had UGA and Clemson at the Benz. You had Comic-Con going on. You had down the street at Bobby Dodd. You had Georgia State, or Georgia Tech, Georgia State. Soon, like as you mentioned, we have the World Cup coming. They announced a Final Four coming. I know there's discussion of bringing an NBA All-Star game to the city in the near future. They want to have the Centennial
MLB
Yard
All-Star game is here
next year. MLB All-Star
Did
game.
you list that one?
Yeah. I didn't yet, but that was the next. But I was saying they want to get the NBA All-Star game once the Centennial Yards project is complete. I know there's a national championship, a college football national championship game being played at the Benz. So, I mean, the city is on fire when it comes to sporting events, global and regional. And it's only better. Nothing could be better than our sports, also, our teams also excelling at that same time, right? That's just going to grow the game across the board. It's going to grow the city economically, helping Atlanta thrive, right? Resurgence. From the ashes,
Resurgence.
the phoenix was born.
Like Bitcoin. We haven't mentioned though, Bitcoin. This is not financial advice, but Bitcoin's down right now. It could be a buy opportunity. Could not, bright things to come. The city's definitely on fire, bro. As far as all the events that are coming, still gotta figure out a way to capitalize. Strike while that iron is hot, man.
Start doing some
of that generational wealth.
live podcast recordings from the from Centennial Yards.
Yeah, don't make jokes. That can be in our future.
Yes, sir. So like, subscribe, help us get to that point, man.
Yeah, we want to accomplish the dream.
Become those city icons.
Yeah, man. We want a billboard, baby.
I want to put on giant arm prosthetics and throw out the first pitch for the Braves. Come on.
And get us there. All it takes is a like, a subscribe, and a comment. And don't forget to follow the gram. Players Ball Pod, not podcast. POD pod.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. It's been a pleasure, my brother.
Have a great night.
Another one in the books.
Peace.